Speaking of Xi and Taiwan, we've also seen both come up in an NBC Meet the Press interview with U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. Let's take a look.
If China invades Taiwan on your watch, are you committed to defending Taiwan?
I never say.
Still won't say?
I never say because I have to negotiate things, right?
Can you just say if you'll defend it? I'm not saying if the U.S. military.
I'd prefer that they don't do it. I have a very good relationship with President Xi. We have been communicating with each other.
Since you were elected?
Yes.
Professor Huang, I'll come back to you again. What do you think Trump's words mean in terms of that he does not prefer that China attack Taiwan? Is there a deterrence effect there?
I tend to think he's showing some softer approach to Beijing, in this interview.
Compared to Biden.
And also compared to when Trump was president before. Okay, so he seems softer. So we have to wonder why he became softer at this interview. So one of the possibilities is that, of course, he, according to Trump himself, he just made a phone call to Xi Jinping. So we have no clue what these two top leaders talked about, but maybe there were some deals already between these two gentlemen. That is why Trump seems softer to Beijing in order to keep the promise he earned from Xi Jinping over the phone call. That's one of the possibilities. And second is that now people say it's Trump 2.0. So this upcoming Trump administration, under the leadership of Donald Trump, may be going to pay more attention to the cost it is going to pay in order to maintain peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait. So, of course, on the one hand, the PLA shouldn't use force to threaten Taiwan, but on the other hand, Taiwan shouldn't call for an independence approach in order to, keep the strait as peaceful as possible. So I think Trump is going to play this two-tier approach to dealing with both Beijing and Taiwan in order to, to see the greatest profit in the eyes of Trump, so that he can manage some other issues in some other areas or regions.
Stephen, do you feel there were deals that were done, as the professor mentioned, with Trump, given that he mentioned in the interview that he just spoke with President Xi 3 days ago?
Well, I don't believe the deals are done, but I think there could be some asks by both sides. Trump being as transactional as we understand he is, how much of a scale of the transactions that he is or he will be making during the first half a year, let's say, of his second term, that's a big question. But you will see that both sides have been accumulating various asks, and then try to make transactions. Now, we don't know what those are, but
what do you suspect when it comes to Taiwan? What kind of deals?
Well,
discussions do you?
No, I think Xi Jinping has previously asked Biden administration a lot of things, various different things, with respect to Taiwan. Arms sale being one, and then how to openly change the so-called One China policy, or the various different variations or the practices under the One China policies. Well, you can tell that those are the previous asks, small asks here and there, but significant by Xi Jinping's administration to the Biden administration. Would those be repeated again? Under what terms? But I wouldn't say that those are put on the first and foremost. You can say that. Well, Trump is telling the whole world that solving the Ukraine-Russian war will be the top priority, and pinpointing that China might have a role in there. So that seems to be one of the first priorities. Now, with respect to Trump's remarks, open remarks on in the media interview, I would say that Trump deviates what his predecessor, the current President Biden, has openly said about coming to the defense
Saying 4 times
or
a day.
having a commitment to that if China invades Taiwan. However, Trump has not deviated the current State Department or the current administration's formal policy, which is one China policy, which is opposing the unilateral change of the peace of the status quo and the peace and stability of Taiwan Strait, and under the long-lasting practices of so-called strategic ambiguity. If anything that deviates the long-lasting practices and the policies, as I just mentioned, the United States at that time will decide what to do and in which directions.
Professor Huang, given that Trump's remarks didn't deviate too much from the current U.S. policy towards Taiwan and towards China, but in terms of substance, the first Trump administration did have record sales of planes and jets and all these other defensive and also offensive articles to Taiwan. Do you feel that will continue? Do you feel that will even be hypened up, given that Trump has a tendency to sell these articles and wanting America, the defense industry, to continue?
It depends largely on whether or not Trump is going to have a better control over his White House and his executive branch. So if he can, then I think perhaps in the first year or two, the Trump administration is not going to sell those more offensive weapons to Taiwan, because now we can observe that not only, as I said, Trump has been softer about Beijing in his interview, but he also lowered his tariff rate from 60% to 10% against Beijing. So there must be something going on. There must be something going on, but we don't know. So I think Donald Trump might be satisfied with Beijing's response to his requests. That is why he becomes softer about Beijing. But if Beijing cannot deliver, like Beijing did last time, phase 1 agreement, Beijing said, yes, I'm going to accept it, I'm going to implement it, but it ended up that Beijing didn't fully. So if Beijing cannot, have its words and do it as Xi Jinping might have promised, then I think perhaps Donald Trump is going to use the arms sales to Taiwan as leverage or as a bargaining chip to deal with Beijing in the future.
What do you say to that, Stephen? Do you feel that he will use that as a chip for Taiwan, or do you feel that there could be more arms sales have we seen?
Well, arms sale is a slightly different off topic, because that is in line with President Trump's open remark on Taiwan, spending more, using more resources for its own defense. But
that's also something that China vehemently opposes.
Right. But Trump himself is a big fan of you pay your own fees for your protection. So that translates directly into the arms sale. So to what extent that will come into play as an issue or as one of the asks by Beijing to Washington not to do that. You see the two conflicting issues, the conflicting the directions of the same issue, arms sale. On one hand, Washington would love to sell as many weapons to Taiwan.
But how much
possible.
will Beijing try to stop that, or will the U.S. comply with Beijing's requests?
Well, it's really hard to say, because arms sale is one thing. The policy remarks by the president, or whether or not the policy will change, or switch a little bit tickers to the other directions, is another thing. To what extent Beijing will tolerate the continuous arms sale or escalated arms sale, at the same time, requesting the Washington to make more commitments to their favor, that's a possibility. That's a possibility that we'll see. But then again, I agree that arms sale could be used as something, as a chip. But that, even within Washington, there will be some pressures from within the party, from people on the hills, encouraging President Trump to continue or to enhance the arms sale to Taiwan. And we're making a request, and we're trying to work with Washington to see if that can be realized to the win-win situation. So I think that complications will continue. It's an ever-changing dynamics that it could change overnight. But at this point, I think I wouldn't say arms sales is purely a chip that Trump can just trade it off just like that. I think there are some variations, and those remains to be seen.